Thank you for watching our video. Please give us a big like, subscribe to our channel for new videos every day with amazing cars. Leave us your opinion in the comment section on the video. Thank you.
Ford is celebrating 100 years in the truck business. Its Model T truck, began production on July 27, 1917. It was the company's first mass-produced, dedicated one-ton truck chassis. A lighter-duty Model T roadster pickup body had been available, and aftermarket entrepreneurs had been making heavier trucks out of Model Ts for years. Powered by the same 2.9-liter 20-horsepower 4-banger/2-speed manual planetary transmission powertrain, it shouldered heavier loads by using far lower gearing that trimmed top speed to 18 miles per hour. The company learned plenty during the 10 years spent building 1.3 million TTs. Those learnings informed its successors, the Model A 1.5-ton truck, 1927 to 1932, Model BB, 32-34, and others leading up to World War II. By 1941 Ford had sold over 4 million trucks, but it was the post-war suburban expansion boom that really revved up Ford's truck business and led to the introduction of the F-Series, starting with 1948's F1. On the occasion of Ford Trucking's centennial birthday, the company offered rides in a pristine 1950 F1 that amply illustrated how incredibly far Ford F-Series trucks have come. Today it is likely possible to build several million F-150 trucks, each featuring a unique combination of bed and cab lengths, trim levels, powertrains, and option loading. But in the F1 days, a single bench seat cab design served all Ford trucks, including the 3-ton rated F8 cab-over model. This first-gen F didn't get a second, more deluxe trim level offering until 1951 when the standard 5-star cab was joined by a deluxe 5-star extra cab. The extra didn't add length, only sybaritic spiffs such as foam seat padding, extra sound-deadening material, bright metal trim around the windshield and vent windows, an argent-finished grille bar, locks and armrests on both doors, 2-tone seat upholstery, a dome light, and twin horns. That gigantic steering wheel lowers steering effort but demands zillions of turns to negotiate a tight corner or U-turn. Ford's little red F1 features a Yankee turn signal and an auxiliary cab heater that we believe Firestone manufactured. The Ford and Firestone families were intermarried, so why not? For such a basic interior, the remarkably complete gauge cluster, speedometer, odometer, fuel, oil pressure, coolant temperature, and charging system voltage meters, is beautifully designed, and it looks a bit like a small radio of the period. Open the big hood, by pulling on the chrome bar in its left air intake hole, to reveal the 239 cubic inch flathead Ford V8. That puny 2-barrel carbon-heady 6.4-to-1 compression were good for a hot 100 horses and 176 pounds-to-foot of torque. They're routed to the rear wheels via a 3-on-the-floor transmission with a non-synchronized first gear and a clutch that engages right at the top of its lengthy travel and with considerable chatter these days. But once engaged, the little V8 pulls reasonably strongly with a low, quiet rumble. It's no EcoBoost twin-turbo, but it feels up to the task of whisking your Larson boat up to the lake. Should the battery die or the starter fail, the venerable flathead V8 was apparently still capable of being crank-started. Stare down the silver hole in the lowest bar of the grille, and you'll notice it lines up with a similar hole in the radiator support and points right at a bolt in the center of the main fan pulley. Righty-tighty should start it, just don't close your thumb over the crank in case it backfires. That's no over-restoration flourish, they came with wooden beds, and a glance under the truck confirms that it's not just mounted inside a steel box. Be sure to keep up with the periodic varnishing maintenance, and termite treatments. We take opening a tailgate for granted these days, expecting single-latch releases and dampers to slow the gate's descent and/or assist raising it. In the F1 era, you removed a hook, slid the large chain link out of the way and reinserted the hook, and then repeated the same on the other side before lowering the gate. Don't forget to rehook the chains, or the nicely painted tailgate will bang into the bumper and become dented and scratched. Every pickup these days is either made of composite material or offers inner and outer sheet metal panels so that dimples on the inside don't look like pimples from the outside. But in the F1 era, you got single-wall steel construction. Oh, and forget about cargo management systems. There were no tie-down hooks, unless you drilled and screwed them eyelets into the wood floor yourself. There were 4 stake holes, though, if you wanted to raise the sides of the bed a bit. On the occasion of the 100th birthday of the first real Ford truck and the 69th anniversary of the venerable best-selling F-Series, let's load your arsenal of pub trivia on the topic. Bonus built. The original F1 trucks, also advertised as the bonus built line, marked Ford's first truly all-new post-war vehicle design. Nationwide. First-gen trucks were assembled in 9 U.S. assembly plants: Chester, Pennsylvania, Dearborn, Michigan, Edison, New Jersey, Long Beach, California, Norfolk, Virginia, St. Paul, Minnesota, St. Louis, Missouri, Hopeville, Georgia, Highland Park, Michigan, most of which also built sedans. By the later 1950s, trucks started being built in plants of their own, and today's 13th Gen F-150 is built in just 2 locations, Kansas City, Missouri, and Dearborn, Michigan. Mercury trucks. The Mercury brand was particularly popular in Canada, so much so that many rural communities had a Mercury, or a Lincoln Mercury Meteor, dealer but no Ford dealer. So to ensure that its trucks could penetrate the entire Great White North, Ford sold Mercury M-Series pickups there with minor trim variations through 1968. Outsourced 4WD. If you wanted 4-wheel drive on an early F-Series, your truck was upfitted by Indianapolis-based Marmon Harrington Company, which added its own 2-speed transfer case and live front axle. The company had been converting trucks for the military since the 1930s. Ford began installing its own 4-wheel drive in 1959. 100x better. In time for Ford's Golden Jubilee in 1953, the redesigned second-gen economy truck line appeared, renamed F100, F200, and so on. Some say the name was inspired by the F-100 Super Sabre fighter jet, the ancient flathead V8 soldiered on through 1953, its 21st year. This gen also brought the first automatic transmission option. Style side. For 1957, the 3rd Gen F-Series adopted the smooth side look all pickups enjoy today, though a more traditional narrow box with flare-side external fenders became optional. 2 bed lengths were also offered, 6.5 foot and 8 foot. 1 bumper fits all. A slightly redesigned front bumper arrived for 1959, chrome door painted, that would carry over on successive F-Series generations for 20 years. That ranks as the longest-running unchanged part on an F-Series. Unibody. In an effort to greatly simplify the body assembly and paint processes, the cabin box were unitized for light-duty F-100 variants of the 4th Gen truck in 1961. Bad idea. Loaded beds occasionally caused a cab door to spring open and/or be impossible to shut. By 1962 and 63, F-100s could be ordered with a separate bed, flare side or style side, and the unitized option was dropped for 1964. Twin I-beam. For 1965, Ford trumped all rivals on the ride and handling front by replacing the leaf-sprung solid front axle with a pair of forged swing arms on coiled springs, a solution that was deemed far more rugged than car-like control arms. A twin traction beam 4WD variation would appear on the 7th Gen truck in 1980. Full-size Ranger. Also appearing in 1965 was the Ranger name, which Edsel was no longer using on its base trim-level sedans. In F-100 duty, it signified the fanciest trim level, making it the King Ranch or Platinum Sight Foreman's truck of its day. Factory crew cabs. 1965 also marked the start of crew cab production on the assembly line for F-250 and F-350 models. The body style had been available before, with production farmed out to coach builders. Mission creep. It was during the 5th Gen, 67-72, that the pickup line started broadening to meet demands for increased creature comfort, with a new bare-bones custom model on the lower end for 1972 and a new Explorer trim package added at the top end. Big in Brazil. The 5th-gen Ford F-Series went on sale in Brazil in 1971 and continued through 1992, undergoing multiple facelifts along the way. Extended cab. The 6th-gen, 7379, brought a 22-inch cab extension for improved storage or passenger hauling in a pinch, in two side-mounted seats. Dodge had introduced the concept in 1973. Catalyst Dodge. To keep some of its trucks from having to meet the EPA's new emissions standards for cars and trucks with less than 6,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight rating, Ford introduced a model that was supposed to be a half-step between F-100 and F-250. This heavy half-ton 6,000-pound GVWR model was dubbed F-150, a name that has been a perennial bestseller for decades.
Thank you for watching our video. Please give us a big like, subscribe to our channel for new videos every day with amazing cars. Leave us your opinion in the comment section on the video. Thank you.